Welcome back to the Commander's Declassified podcast. I'm your host tonight, Brian. Gentlemen, how are we? Eric, what's going on, man?
Welcome back from your fabulous vacation. I saw the lovely pictures of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and all the stands, the M&M stand.
Yeah.
Looked like you had a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, no, the not your traditional vacation spots that I went to, but they were a great time. Had a few drinks, relaxed with the family, and had myself a good time. But
Very good.
glad to be back talking football. Mike, how are you, man? How you been?
What's poppin', y'all? I'm good. I've been working since 6 o'clock until literally this second.
Oh man.
So, yeah, grind day for me as well.
I got you. Ellie is not with us tonight. They have him on the road. He's on a flight to Geneva right now. They are working him hard. We will see him here hopefully next week or in the coming weeks, but he is hard at work. We wish him well, and he'll be back here shortly. We got a lot to talk about. A lot has happened since the last time you guys were on last week. And when I was on vacation, a lot has happened. We've had a preseason game. We had a joint practice today. We've had headlines with all kinds of stuff. So let's start with the Browns preseason game. Eric, just overall impression from that game. Did it mean anything to you? Good, bad, indifferent? Just kind of thoughts on it.
Yeah, I was excited to watch. At the first drive was, Sam looked very good on the first drive until the penalty kind of killed him. He had that big drop by my guy John Bates, but it wouldn't have counted even if he caught it because it got called back by a holding penalty and the drive kind of stalled there. The second drive, doomed from the start.
Yeah.
When you start inside your 5-yard line. Against a quality defense, you're in trouble. Obviously, the offensive line didn't look great. I thought Sam handled the pressure very well. He was seeing quite a bit of pressure. He did get sacked. And the sack, after rewatching it, the sack is definitely on him. It was the one that wasn't on the offensive line. That was they rushed 5 or they rushed 6, and we had 5 guys blocking. He has to get rid of the ball there. That's the only real mistake that I saw him make. He looks inexperienced to me still, but obviously it's because he is inexperienced. There's little things. He's a little, in my opinion, a little too eager to run at times. He takes off a little bit before maybe he should. I heard a lot of people talking about stepping up in the pocket and going back and watching those games. I didn't really see a lot of opportunities for him to step up in the pocket. I mean, and I know, the escaping out of the back and kind of rolling around, that's a very young quarterback thing to do, but there weren't a lot of good options for him, to step up. Whereas Brissett had the one really nice play where he stepped up. But yeah, I thought Jacoby Brissett looked great. I thought Jake Fromm looked like Jake Fromm. I was happy with the game for the most part. The offensive line has me concerned. Andrew Wiley was pretty poor. Cosme didn't look so bad. Leno got beat once or twice. Pretty much everybody got beat at least once. But yeah, I didn't really see Cosme making too many mistakes at guard. That's encouraging. Chris Paul on the other side looked okay. Most of the pressure was coming from those edges for the most part. So definitely something to watch. But overall, a pretty good game. A lot of guys are not going to be around. But the guys that are going to be here look like they belong here. They were making plays well in the third quarter. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a solid game for everybody involved. But Mike, preseason game, we had a little bit of a rain delay in that game to start out, so it took a little bit longer for us to watch this team and see our first shot at what they look like. What did you think?
I like what I saw for the most part. I'm not thrilled with the defense and how they let the Browns march up the field, but
that's a big thing, yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of their thing. That whole bend but don't break type defense, and as annoying as it may be at times, consistently, I would say, they shut stuff down in the red zone for the last few seasons, even in 2021 when the defense wasn't as good as we expected them to be. They still perform well in the red zone. So I'm kind of iffy on the defense. I'm cool with Sam Howell. We got to remember he's a rookie, a 5th-round rookie, playing behind a suspect line at the least. Yeah, he's going to make rookie mistakes, but what I appreciate about him is that he seems to bounce back from these mistakes. It happened in the Cowboys game. It happened again on Friday when he took the sack. They gave him another drive, and he came down, threw a touchdown to Dawson. Oh, and speaking of Dawson, he did nothing but make me feel more confident that he's going to have a nice season in 2023. Like I am the driver on the Dotson bandwagon. Like I am the driver. Put the captain hat on me, and that's a ride, man. Like I'm ready.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. In my thoughts on the game go like this, right? Everybody was going to be watching the offense. That was going to be first and foremost because what we're in a quote unquote QB battle, and I thought, first thing first with Hal, he didn't put the ball in harm's way, right? There was no, okay, I'm getting pressure, panic, let me just toss it up and see what happens. There was none of that. He threw the ball away a couple of times when there wasn't anything there or he didn't have something that he thought he could make. He just threw it away. And I'll live with that because that means, guess what? I can live to fight another play or I can punt. It's not a turnover. Eric, yeah, you were spot on. That sack was all Sam. Like he even knew it. He saw where it was coming from, and he looked at his check down. He should have thrown it to his check down. He didn't. I think he probably
check down was wide open, I think.
Yeah, his check down
was it a Gibson? It was like wide open out on the side.
Yep.
Yeah.
And his primary receiver was open for a split second. If he would have got rid of the ball on time, he could have hit that receiver too. So it was two options he had. But like I said, he's a rookie, so cut the Bama some slack.
And one of the things I do like about that is after the game, he said, yep, that was on me. He acknowledged it, and hopefully we won't see that again from him. He seems to learn from his mistakes and learn quickly, so that's something I appreciate. But for the most part, the other passes, the ball was out on time. When he did get some pressure, I like the scramble on third down for 8 yards. His mobility is legitimate. Like, he's not going to rush for 100 yards. He's not going to have a 50-yard touchdown run, but he can pick up a first down when he needs to. The fourth down play to extend the play and hit, I think, Cole Turner.
Yeah.
Again, that's something that we've been missing. That's something that we will need, especially with the way the offensive line performed. So I think those were encouraging. Still more work to be done, right? He needs to improve. The rest of the team needs to improve around him. I thought Eric Bieniemy play calling, I was happy with it. I thought, hey, this is what we want. Get the ball out of his hands quick. Get it to our guys. Terry McLaurin had a catch within the framework of this offense. Too many games last year. It was the second half, and Terry had no catches. But he had a catch, and I'm pretty positive that we're going to see a lot more of Terry once regular season starts. Bieniemy will have a plan, and I don't think they're even showing what they have in store for him just yet. So I do like it. Definitely some mistakes that need to be cleaned up. Let's go. You guys touched on it a little bit, and then we'll finish up this preseason game and get into some good stuff that happened today. The defensive side, Mike, you started to talk about the defense a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Things that stood out with you from the starting group, which I know that they didn't play that much, and then anybody other, non-starter that kind of popped to you or stood out, or maybe somebody you want to talk about.
So I don't know if y'all can see my little headline. I'm strong like Forbes.
Oh, yeah.
So on the goal line, I think it was third down, matter of fact, he met the running back in the backfield, and I forgot who the other tackler was, but together they flipped that running back.
Yeah.
And that's, as annoyed as I was with the defense, seeing Forbes be that physical in his first preseason game, like he put that whole 166, 175 pound, like, I don't want to hear it no more.
Yeah.
Like, and we're going to talk later about something else that he did. But, like, Forbes, I love that pick more and more every day. I'm really happy they got him. Other than that, they struggle with the short passing game. That's something that the death by 1,000 cuts, they will struggle with that. I don't understand why they seem to struggle with the short passes, but it's something that teams will have to take advantage of, because once they try to go deep, I don't think they'll be able to complete as many passes. But for some reason, when they get the ball out quick on this defense, they move it.
Yeah, no, I like those there. Eric, what did you think from the preseason game defensively? Whether it's starters or whether it's one of the other guys a little further down the depth chart.
Yeah. Well, you said the quick passing game. I mean, you're going to see that all year with the defensive pressure that we can generate up front. Quarterbacks are going to have to get the ball out quickly. So we're going to see short passes all year. The linebackers, when they're in the game, have to step up. Jamin got beat on an out, like on the first play of the game. He was okay other than that. But I really need him to be an impact player this year because, yeah, this is the year he has to hit. And if he doesn't, then he's just a guy and he's just going to be that. One thing I was really impressed with overall was the secondary play throughout the game. Secondary was there. They were minimizing yardage gains when they gave up passes, but Christian Holmes and Jeremy Reeves, those guys were flying to the ball. Percy Butler had a nice pick, and he's fast, man. I've never really seen him run before, but he was moving when he got that interception. So, the secondary overall, I thought was really, really impressive. They really seemed, we saw them last year when Cam Curl wasn't in the game. They just didn't know what was going on. This year, they were much better, just overall in sync. I don't know how much that has to do with like vanilla offense being run or whatever, but they were doing a great job, and I want to see more of that. They were really flying around. They were hitting people, and they were making solid tackles. They were making solo tackles. They were swarming the ball. They were doing everything. So I thought that was a really good job. Quan Martin obviously struggled. I'm wondering, because what I'm hearing is that they're moving him around a lot in camp. And we saw Jamin Davis really get set back his rookie year because they put too much on him too early. I'm wondering if that's what's happening with Quan Martin, that maybe they just need to get him good at one thing and then expand it out instead of just trying to throw the, whole shebang at him from the get-go. I know he's got a very versatile skill set, but he's also a rookie in this league, and defense is really hard to play in the NFL. So I am wondering if maybe they just need to scale back some of what they're giving him, and we can see him, kind of grow into the role as opposed to just be a jack of all trades right out of the gate.
Eric, I'm glad you mentioned that because that is something that literally Percy Butler, I want to say it was during minicamp, one of the interviewers, I think it was JP Finley, asked him about his rookie year. And he said, they had me learning every position in the secondary, and it really hampered my growth in terms of, I was constantly having to think all the time, what do I have to do? Oh, wait, I'm not playing corner. I'm playing safety. I'm playing strong safety. I'm playing free. And I think you're right. I think they're probably having him do too many things where it's just slowing him down. And conversely, Percy said this year, right, he's more focused in on that free safety role and he's playing better. And I think we're seeing it in practice. And Percy, he's a 4-3 guy. He's a 4-3 guy. And he was a guy that, if he could play free safety, which is what he did, he played free safety, he played in the slot in college. If he can play free safety, you have Cam Curl at strong safety, and then Derek Forrest drops down into that Buffalo nickel role. I think you've got a great rotation of guys right there, of safeties, really give you a lot of flexibility, a lot of speed and athleticism out on the field to match up with the various wide receiver formations that you're going to see throughout the course of the season. So if he can continue to develop, I think you're right. That secondary is just going to be really, really good.
Yeah. And based on what you said there, I guess it depends on what they're going to do with Quan Martin this year. Are they going to depend on him? Or is this like a redshirt year for me? If it's a redshirt year, just throw it all at him and let him learn everything. Because we saw it work for Percy Butler. Seems to be working for Butler. He's much, he looks much more comfortable this year. Maybe that'll be the case with Quan Martin. But if, I just maybe they saw what Cam Curl was able to do as a rookie and be able to actually handle all that responsibility. Not every player, is wired that way. So I'm curious. I'm just curious to see. They obviously know more about this stuff than I do. So I'm not going to argue with what they're doing, but it just seems to me that his reaction time was very slow. So if they're gonna develop him and let him learn everything, but not depend on him this year, I guess that's an okay approach. But I'd be concerned if that's just they're going to throw him in the starting lineup early on. He might struggle.
Yeah. No, I agree. One last thing on this Browns game. I saw this. There's a guy, it's at Adam Levitan, I think is his name, or his Twitter handle. He broke down all the starting quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, their reps for their preseason games, and how many snaps pass routes, that kind of thing. And something struck me here. So for our running backs, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson had 11 snaps, went out on 8 pass routes. Antonio Gibson, 10 snaps, 7 pass routes. Mike, anything about that stick out to you? Is it a nothing thing? Is it something that we should pay attention to, that Brian Robinson is involved that much in the pass game?
I'm not sure. That's interesting. You guys send me that link to that Twitter person.
I'll put it in the chat.
I don't because it's preseason and they're doing so much, hiding so much. I just think that he maybe wanted to see him run routes in live games. But it would be interesting. Like I don't think Robinson is the running back that you want to put out and passing as much, even though he's seemingly good at catching the ball and he's gotten better at running routes. We know what his bread and butter is, pounding the rock. So I don't know about putting him out and passing routes, 8 times in one quarter? Or 8 times in 8 out of 10 snaps, that's insane. But I mean, yeah, like when Bieniemy first came here, he said that if we have to run the ball 100 times to win, we'll do it. If we have to pass the ball 100 times to win, we'll do it. We just want to be able to do both. So I guess that's his way of saying, hey, I was serious when I said that we have to pass it 100 times. We're going to pass it 100 times. And if Brian Robinson has to run 95 routes, then he's going to run 95 routes. So
how many
just
routes
pay
Chris
attention
Rodriguez
to him.
run?
Yeah, he ran none.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No.
Yeah, he ran none. I think we can all safely assume Chris Rodriguez will be between the tackles only.
He's not
in terms of running.
He looked like an effective runner, although not super dynamic. He basically is good at one thing, and that's just going straight ahead really fast. So, which that definitely works. Yeah, he's a battering ram. I was trying to think of who he reminded me, like who he looked like running the ball. And my first thought was Darius Geis when he was here before he started choking ladies. But I think now this is super early, but I said that out loud, and I'm really sorry. Darius, I'm sorry.
Delete.
Everyone, I'm very sorry. Yeah, we'll fix that in post.
Yeah.
No, you know who he looked like after 6 carries, whatever he got this year. Very poor man's Marshawn Lynch. That's his running style. He runs like Marshawn Lynch.
You know who I thought like he looks like, because he's got such a big upper body and then his feet seem to be constantly moving. It just reminded me of maybe a little bit smaller Jerome Bettis. Jerome Bettis had this big body and then he had these little feet that just always seemed to keep moving. Just would always move. Feet. Yeah, and it just kind of reminded me of that. Certainly nowhere near as the talent, but it just kind of looked like that. But
yeah, I don't want to put Marshawn Lynch expectations on Rodriguez. That's just what that's just who he reminded me of running the ball after I really put some thought into it, where he just ran straight ahead. Maybe Darius Geis is a better example, just because he didn't do much in the NFL either.
Very true. Very true.
So maybe we'll hold off on the Marshawn Lynch comparisons and we'll go with Geis right now. But that's just kind of what he looked like. He's not super dynamic. He just runs straight ahead and plows into people, and he does it well. So I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah, kind of like a modern day All-Star. You think?
I don't know, man, because All-Star
ran
also not as fast. Yeah. I don't know. Allstott was like there is no modern day Allstott. Like he was like the Christian Okoye. Like he's that dude. Like if you played like video games, everybody's just bouncing off him. Yeah. Like in those old like 16-bit video games. That you see just dudes flying off. That was Allstott. I don't know. He was very effective too.
Yeah, Allstott was a little bit of a fumbler, and I think the only guy who even looked similar was Peyton Hillis. That one year, Peyton Hillis had 1,500 yards for the Browns, and then never did anything else after that. But it just was interesting. I saw those combination of pass routes and things like that. Cole Turner got 18 snaps, which was good. I thought he looked good from there, but. Let's move on from the preseason game. It was a good start, but today was the day. the first joint practice, right? There have been a lot of, people pointing to this day as a real day or a much clearer look into, okay, is Sam Howell actually a legitimate option at quarterback, right? This is something that all the naysayers kind of point to. Well, see, just wait. The Ravens practice will show you what he is. Well, Mike, what did the Ravens practice first day? We got one more day. So who knows? All kinds of things could happen tomorrow. But from today, what did this practice tell you about? We'll start with the quarterback because that's everybody wants to know.
From what I've seen, from what I heard, it kind of just felt like a normal day at the office for him.
Yeah.
And again, for a fifth round, well, not rookie, second year quarterback, like that's good.
Yes.
Like going against the Ravens and coming out looking okay. You got Marlon Humphrey saying you look comfortable. I'm like, hey, we got some here. It might not be elite, but hey, it's better than whatever the heck we had last season.
Yeah, agreed. It, I think it at least shows a level of competency that we haven't had. Whether or not it progresses from there, we don't know. We'll have to see. But hey, if we're not throwing up on ourselves in this joint practice, I think that is more than what we've had in years past. But Eric, same question. Everybody, every analyst, reporter, fan. Joint practices are going to be majorly important. We haven't had any, I think, since the Houston Texans down in Richmond, which ended up in a big brawl, I think.
I think we had one since then with the Jets.
Patriots. I know we did one. It was Texans and Patriots, but I think the Texans was the most recent with D'Angelo Hall and DeAndre Hopkins. How many ever years ago that was? But Eric, what was your thoughts about joint practice number one today with the Ravens?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. This is every other joint practice session we've had has always been like a wake-up call for the fan. Like the delusional fans have always been kind of like, well, we're not going to be very good this year. And that's not the feeling we got coming out of one day. It's like these two teams were actually pretty close. And everybody talks about the Ravens as a playoff team or a playoff caliber team. And, nobody was indicating, the year that, the stuff like the Patriots doing extra work when Club J was like walking off the field and they're, lazy, and, Tom Brady was out there running sprints, right?
Yep.
There's none of that. It just seems like, the teams were belonged on the same field together from all witnesses. We're not saying, Washington was clearly better than Baltimore. Baltimore was clearly better than Washington. It was just like they looked like two teams that could play against each other in a competitive game. And that's what you really want to see because it's been unfortunately so long since we could really say that about this team, even with, the previous offensive coordinator, the coaching. And I think that's the big difference with Sam is, if Taylor or, Wentz or whatever had similar coaching that, Sam's getting this year, would that be, would they have, turned out better here? Who knows? But yeah, it's interesting. It didn't seem like we were out of our league, out of our element, outclassed today, based on any reports that I saw. And that's a huge step in the right direction for me.
Yeah, agreed. And that's not just Washington reports or Washington reporters, right? There was Kadri Ishmael, right? That's a former Ravens player. I think he
does their pre-games. Yeah, their preseason games. Yeah,
and he said Washington actually came out a little bit more prepared than we did today. And there's no reason for or any Ravens associate or person or reporter to kind of say that unless it was really actually true. So I think that was the nice thing. Hey, we looked prepared, and for so long we haven't been prepared. Much like you said, Eric, we were the ones not prepared. And I think if Scott Turner was still here, I think the offense probably would be unprepared. The tempo would be slow, and we probably would have gotten embarrassed in some of these 11-on-11s. But with Bieniemy being as tough as he was, right, that tough love seems to have paid off, right? They developed a grit, they developed a tempo to their business, which affects, the whole team, right? The defense has to adjust to the tempo as well, too. So the offense was able to kind of match. And I heard one comment today, and it made me laugh because it just shows how far we've come, even though it shows how far we were away. Was that today's practice? It was Craig Hoffman, who's got a radio show. He does podcasts with Logan Paulson from the team. But he said that this joint practice, there was a little bit more standing around than Bieniemy's practices, and I just thought that was hilarious. That right, we're stepping up. We're doing this joint practice with the so-called Ravens. They're the gold standard, and there was more standing around this practice than the Bieniemy practices here the last 2-3 months or whatever it's been, where Bieniemy is high volume. Everybody's constantly moving at practice, getting the most reps. That I don't want to say step down, but there was a little bit more standing around. I thought that was kind of funny today. But Mike, with this joint practice today, we talked about Howell. Let's go to the defensive side of the football. Any thoughts about how the defense looked, defensive line, secondary? Anybody you want in particular? I know there were some fights and stuff like that. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
I'm pointing at his name again. I'm talking about Forbes, man.
Yeah.
The first video that I saw today while I was at work was the little skirmish between him and the Ravens receiver. And I can't say it enough. I just appreciate that physicality despite his size. And it's the attitude of the entire defense. You can tell that it's an infectious attitude. You saw during the scuffles, you just saw the defense come together as one unit. Like I even saw Obata in the middle of it, just tossing people. So I appreciate the physicality. I appreciate them not backing down from the Ravens. Other than that, just like Howell, it just seemed like, and it kind of coincides with what you were saying. It just seemed like another day at the office, and that's something we haven't felt from this team, honestly, ever. Maybe under Gibbs back in 04 through 07. Maybe that's when we were, professional But yeah, I'm really digging and appreciating how not just the local media and the fans are seeing this team, but the national perspective is starting to change before the season even starts, and it's up to them to capitalize on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree there. Eric, anything from the defensive side of this joint practice that stood out to you or that you thought was a little bit different than, maybe what we've seen in years past?
Well, no Chase Young. I guess that's not different than what we've seen in years past, but would have liked to have seen him. I'm reading that Sweat had a big day. I think Sweat's just going to have an insane year this year.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get 15, 16 sacks. I really do. I think he's going to just be an absolute monster. So, we see that he might surpass John Allen this year as my favorite defensive lineman if he does that. Because I just think that he is ready to roll this year. He's trying to get himself paid. And he's got just a lot of motivation to play. And he's been good for all these years. I think his run support has always been super underrated to me. People like to talk about his rushing. He's a really long, really good run defender, plays the zone read really well. And he's when he gets his, when he played, watching him play the zone read, he's got the Slender Man effect with his arms way out here, and he covers 7 yards of field. And he's had spurts of really good pass rushing, but he's never put it all together. I really think this is the year that it's just all going to come together for him, and it's going to be just in time, and he's going to get himself a massive payday come 24. So I can't wait to see him this year. So that was my takeaway. I think Montez Sweat just looked great. Payne and Allen are just pros all around. The defensive front is just going to be good this year. I don't know if it's going to be the most dominant defensive front in NFL history. It's going to be a very good defensive front, just as it has been in recent years. And anything we can get out of Chase Young is gravy. I think he's going to have a good year too, as long as he can, get on the field. He's poised. He's got a lot to play for as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Just real quick to go back to the game from Saturday, the play that he got hurt on. Did you rewatch that play? He completely forklifted that. It was a great pass rush. That was a really good job. He just barely missed the sack and he ended up getting hurt. But man, that was just a really good end. I think we'll see more of that this year as long as he's healthy.
No, thank you for pointing that out because on that play, right? If you watch Chase's hands, he used his hands a little bit more to knock down the offensive tackle's hands, and then kind of just do that little slip and get by him before he ended up getting that stinger. So I thought that was nice because that was been one of my big pet peeves is like his hand work, his hand usage, his hand fighting just hasn't been there. Like you're year 3 now or 4. We've got to see more hand work from you, and to see that just that little bit, that little instance, because it was 4 snaps and then he was done. It was nice to see. So hopefully there's more of that when he is healthy. For me, the biggest thing is that defensively, we were there. We could hang with now, the Ravens don't have the best wide receivers. I know they have OBJ, but he's not necessarily what he was, 5 or 6 years ago or anything like that. But we were right there covering everybody. And while Howell on the other side, was really good in the short and intermediate, guess what Lamar Jackson had to do? He had to do kind of the same thing, short and intermediate passes, and was inconsistent on the deep passes because, hey, guess what? We've got pressure, and we also had some good coverage, down the field with our guys, with our safeties, with our corners. So that was nice to see, right? Because it would have really sucked if Lamar Jackson was just launching 80-yard touchdown bombs against our secondary every pass play. So it was good to see all 3 levels of the defense, maybe not the linebackers, but at least 2 levels of the defense perform really, really well against a really good team. So that I thought that was nice. Anybody non-starter standouts from the joint practice, Mike, that you saw, heard about, or maybe would like to see tomorrow? Anybody further down that depth chart stick out to you, or maybe you want to see?
So I've heard good things about the offensive line, mainly the second unit, from training camp, the preseason game, and now the joint practices. It wouldn't surprise me if a couple of those second unit offensive linemen who performed well in today's joint practice, if they somehow, some way sneak into the starting lineup, maybe not in the beginning of the season, but towards the middle of the season, I could easily see somebody replacing Sadiq Charles or even Leno or Wiley, because the tackle play hasn't been spectacular. It's been all right, but if I can't remember who the backups are on the tackle, but if they continue to
Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas, definitely Lucas. If he continues to perform well, he definitely can overtake Leno, who's a professional and a veteran. I get it, but at the end of the day, what you doing for me on Sundays?
Exactly. No, I like that. I want to see Stromberg get an opportunity. There have been reports that they've been trying him at guard, which I think it's a waste. He is a center. He could be a really good center, but let's put him at a position where he's not the best at. That logic is lost on me.
I see it, because if he's just a center, he's not going to be on an active roster on the game day. And I think they want him available, because he may end up being a backup center, but you got to be able to play multiple positions if you're going to be a backup offensive, like interior OL. You just can't be a one-trick pony. So that's why I don't love him at guard either. He's definitely, the potential is there at center, and I think he's the center of the future. But he's going to have to learn guard if he wants to be on a roster, on an active roster.
And my thing isn't so much, hey, like I get during the course of the game, your guard goes down. Hey, all right, Stromberg needs to go in and play guard for the next 3 quarters until we can get out of there. That part I'm okay with. But if you're talking about, hey, we're just going to make you a guard as your primary and
they're not going to do that.
And occasionally put you at center if we need you. That's where I have a problem with this position flex is you're taking somebody out of their core strength and putting them into a position of, hey, they could just be average at this, or maybe they're below average, but just so you guys can have a body there. Like that to me, I don't want just a body. I want somebody good at guard. If he's a guard only and he's a damn good one, I think that's better than having a guy who's just okay at guard or maybe below average at guard just because he could do both. So that's kind of my only thing.
Hopefully the coaching staff, they learned their lesson with William Jackson III.
No, they didn't.
Trying to force a player into your scheme instead of finding a player that fits your scheme, because that disaster goodness. I'm getting
Yeah,
chills just thinking about it.
I don't think there's a plan to move him to guard permanently. I think they're getting him reps, like I said, just to make sure, because if he only plays center and you want to add him to your game day roster, that means you also have to carry a guard. Whereas if you have a guy who can play both, you have an extra spot you can use on your game day roster. I think that's the thought process behind it. I don't think they're going to ever, I would hope they don't try to make him a guard because strength is his main issue, and strength is the number one thing you need as a to play guard. And that's, but if he can't do it, it's very hard to justify getting somebody on a game day roster who only plays one position. So that, to me, would be the reason he's learning guard. Otherwise, he's going to be on the practice squad, or he's just going to be inactive all year. So who knows?
Yeah.
We're all just fans, right?
That's it. We're guys on the couch. The other big thing that happened today, lots of fights, not big brawls like we saw down in Richmond a couple of years ago with that, like we talked about, the DeAndre Hopkins, D'Angelo Hall thing. But, kind of minor things. Eric, I'll start with you. What's your thought on these fights? You've got the one approach. Yeah, let's fight. You got to be a man, right? And, there's the other, right? Like, hey, it doesn't do anything. Guys can get hurt. You're wasting reps. Like, where do you come down on some of these fights?
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle there. To me, it didn't sound like anything serious. It was just competitive guys being competitive, and they took it a little too far. It's good to see in preseason because you got to see the guys who can control themselves and those who can. And that can be the deciding factor on whether you make a team. So if you're a fringe guy on the roster and you're out there getting in fights, like, that's not a good look for you.
No.
But who was it? Was it Forbes and the wide receiver got into a little bit?
Yep.
What was the other one? It was a line fight, right? No, there was a tight end, like Humphrey or
Mark Andrews for the Ravens.
Yeah,
smallest guy on the field, Danny Johnson, and body.
That's a chump move. Yeah, that's a chump move.
Yeah,
but a
pump handle slam too. Like, bro, what are you doing?
It was a chump move. But I'm not a big proponent of the old like Jeff Fisher teams that were just like chippy but dirty. Like, I don't want it to be a fan of a dirty team. But I mean, it seems to me like mostly, other than the Andrews thing, it was just competitors being competitive. And maybe the coaches didn't have as good a handle on it as they should have, or there wasn't somebody there to break it up a little sooner. But you just got to learn how to control yourself. It's better that you can learn these lessons, in a practice setting than in a game setting where you get 15 yards or you get ejected or suspended or whatever. So, I'm not super concerned about it just because it didn't seem like it was anything too serious. We just learned what a chump Mark Andrews is. That's the main takeaway of the practice. If pick the smallest guy on the field and body slam him, that's not cool.
Exactly, Mike.
But that's the guy who Obata went after, though, right?
Yeah, after he slammed Danny Johnson.
So that's what also I like to see is you got who your team you got guys who've got their teammates' backs. I like that too.
Yeah,
just getting in there and standing up for their guy. I like to see that because we've seen that in the past where that wasn't always the case on this team.
Right.
No, agreed. Mike, where do you come in with the all-out brawl, or let's avoid some of these fisticuffs?
We got a perfect example today on what type should be allowed and what type shouldn't be allowed. The scuffle between Forbes and the receiver for the Ravens, who I really wish I knew his name, but that was fine. Little pushing, little swings, everybody pushing and shoving. That was cool. But what Andrews did was a straight up gump move. And Danny Johnson did have a little shoulder thing that the trainers looked at afterwards. And that's what you don't want. Yeah. You don't want to do anything that could injure a player. And that's exactly what Mark Andrews did. But the first fight, that's nothing. Like, we can push and shove and, the heat getting to us or whatever. But anything that can injure a player, absolutely not.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Forbes wide receiver one, it was number 16. I don't remember his name either. That was both guys took swings and then basically it was done right from there. Like it didn't really progress. But Danny Johnson wasn't even involved in the play. He kind of came up afterwards to pick up the football that was on the ground, and Andrews just turned around and body slammed him. So that tells me who Andrews is. So everybody listening, we all know who Mark Andrews is now. After watching that, but no need for the big all-out bench clearing brawls. Waste of time. But at some point you got to stand your ground, and I think they were fine today. Nothing too crazy on that.
Yeah, my standard always is if you're swinging at a guy who's wearing a helmet, you're not serious about fighting. Because you're not going to hurt. I mean, you're not going to hurt anybody except yourself. You can hurt your hand, but like you don't swing at a guy with a helmet on. If you do, like you're just acting tough, I guess. You're flexing, but.
Another thing I saw from today's practice, so I watched Rivera's comments, his post practice comments, and one of the things he said is during any type of joint competition or joint practice, he doesn't watch the defense. He goes over it. He watches the offense. So he was standing right behind the offense the entire time watching. I mean, he was watching the quarterback, right? He was watching Sam, and he said for the most part he liked everything that Sam did. There were a couple of instances, maybe in the first series, where he wanted Sam to kind of speed up his process, get the ball out quicker. And to his credit, Rivera said, "Hey, he did it." For the rest of the series, ball was out quick, on time, so much so that in that Washington Post article about today's practice, they said Sam Howell was essentially kind of frustrating the Ravens defense because he was getting the ball out and completions, right? The Ravens weren't able to break up any of those passes on there. Mike, what do you think about Rivera watching the offense as if he's a offensive savant or guru?
You know, it is weird that he says that, but I kind of understand. Even back in the day when he was with Carolina, you got to think about who his defensive coordinators were. We're talking Steve Wilkes, Sean McDermott, two coaches that know what the heck they're doing.
Yeah.
And the same with Jack Del Rio. So he has the luxury of letting the defensive coordinators run the defense, and he could focus more on the offensive side. My question is, what the heck have you been watching your entire career? Because in year 13 as a head coach, you still haven't grasped the concept of modern offenses.
That's so true.
And it probably cost you a Super Bowl or two because you had a great quarterback in your hands, but never really truly developed them. Kept hiring these offensive coordinators that wasn't doing too much. So I don't know what he's looking at when he's looking at these offenses, but I understand his logic of letting the defensive coordinators handle that, and he focused more on the quarterback, like you said.
Yeah, he should have been doing that last year. Like,
yeah.
What was he should have been watching Scott Turner's crap offense.
I'm telling you, man.
It should have changed sooner.
Yeah, that Mike, I like exactly where you went with that. And Eric, you just pointed it out. Like, wait, you're just doing that now? Where was that when Ryan Fitzpatrick, when you signed him, or when Wentz was out there? Why weren't you watching them and seeing how their process was? But I think something I thought about too is Ron has said in the past, right? This joint practice would be kind of where he decides who the starter is going to be. And I don't know if he'll announce that, after the practice tomorrow, or maybe he waits till the Monday night preseason. So maybe this was kind of his thing of, okay, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to see what I can see. And I'll make my call, or maybe I can put, Ron likes to play these little weird mind games, and they're so obvious. They're not even really mind games, but he likes to make comments about guys' contracts, or, hey, I'm going to watch Hal, from 5 feet away, for the first time. I'm assuming most of training camp here, but I think that's kind of, my thinking about what he was doing there today. Eric, joint practice today ended really, again, positive reviews from the most of the beat reporters. I think all the beat reporters. I've read Fortier, Nikki Javala, Matt Paris, Kime, Standig. All of these guys all had pretty positive things about the offense, about the defense, about the operation in general. Where do you come down on the first day? Everything that you saw, good, bad, and different, and what do you want to look for tomorrow?
Yeah. To paraphrase Allen Iverson, is practice. No, it's good to see. Like I said, the fact that we didn't get embarrassed by a more prepared, better coach team, and we look like we belong on the same field is fantastic. So obviously, I would like to see more of that. And moving forward, you just want nobody to get hurt, which is my mantra for every, training camp, preseason thing moving forward. Oh, one thing. Have you guys noticed that a player who was getting all this love in the offseason, and now that like people are hitting, like you don't hear a peep out of them again?
Who's that?
Khalil Hudson. Dude's back on the milk carton. I knew it was all smoke. Like he's
So
yeah.
he got a pick today. I heard.
Oh, look at that.
But to strengthen your case, I guess it was on a tip pass at the line of scrimmage. So it wasn't like he made a spectacular play. He just caught the interception, which is great, especially for this defense that don't force turnovers.
Offensive line blocked him 7 yards down the field, and he just happened to be standing there. I'm not a believer. I'm just not. So prove me. You have to prove me wrong.
If something was going to happen, it probably would have happened by now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like 2 years ago when there was like 0 linebackers on the roster. He was there. It was right there for him. He was a healthy linebacker, and he still couldn't get on the field. So now you're telling me he's beating out 2 healthy linebackers ahead of him. I'm sorry. Nothing against you, Khalil, but I just don't. You're not a starting. He's just not a starting linebacker. That's all I can say.
And Eric, I think you're exactly right. I have been fooled by Khalil Hudson since he got drafted. Every year I've been like, this. Oh, he could do it. He's the Buffalo nickel. And every year he gets put on the practice squad or cut.
You need him. You need guys like him on the roster. He's a special teamer. He does it well. He's a solid backup. He knows what he's supposed to be doing, but he just don't. He's a player for whatever reason. He seems to get like there's like this little hype train for him every offseason, and he just turns back into a pumpkin once the game starts. So
you would think as a former safety he would be a bit better at pass coverage.
Yes,
but it's just the level of athleticism in the NFL is just different, and he can't hang. I mean, that's what it is. And he's not really big enough to cover tight ends because he's like a safety-sized linebacker who's not very fast. So that's just it's a tough spot. I mean, it's credit to him for sticking around this long. He's clearly doing something right, but I mean,
was he drafted or?
Yeah, he was like a 5th or 6th round pick. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he was around 5 pick in 20. I think.
I
could be wrong on that.
And then next was the 6th round was that center that Keith Ishmael that never made the field and Ron cut. But that's right. Khalil Hudson has fooled me just about every year. Every year, I think this is the breakout, and he gets cut or he's buried on the depth chart somewhere. So not this year. He's not going to fool me again this year, hopefully. Mike, your thoughts about, again, positive reviews, really from everywhere. Ravens reporters, our reporters about the operation today. What was, your kind of overall thoughts about the first day?
They received a passing grade, all things considered. Now, what I want to see is, can you stack a day? Can you go out and do the same thing again? Because the worst thing that can happen, honestly, is that Howell look nice today, and then come out tomorrow and throw about 8-10 picks, and then we're like, what happened between last night and this morning?
No, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Hopefully they can, just have another day, maybe. And I heard this, and it goes back to the Quadri Ismail quote that you said earlier. The Ravens start practice at 1:30 apparently.
Yes,
and I know for a fact that Washington usually starts at 9:30.
Yep.
So that excuse might fly on day one. But if the Commanders come out and have a similar day in day 2, then we know I got something cooking here.
Yeah, no, I heard that same one as well. And my only response to that is if it was flipped, if it was us who had been starting at 1:30, nobody would buy that excuse at all. Nobody would buy that at all, and we would be still. So if that's what the Ravens are hanging their hat on, that they start practice later, or that's the reason. I don't put much stock in it, but yeah, you're right. I did hear that one as well too. Let me ask you this, because you guys talked about this. I wasn't on the pod last week. You guys talked about the enemy quote, Rivera's quote about players coming to him, talking about the practice maybe a little too hard. But does it seem like to you, and Eric, I'll start with you first, I'll go to Mike, Does it seem like, hey, guess what? Those hard practices seems like it kind of paid off today.
Yes. I mean, the team is clearly much better coached, much more, even you could see it in the game. They were crisper.
Yeah.
And the hard coaching, there's definitely a different gear that this offense has this year. That it just hasn't been there in the past. And, an easygoing coach gets, easygoing results.
Yeah.
And, again, I'm not 100% convinced that Bieniemy is a guy that's going to stick around for 7-8 years as a coach, just because of his tactics just tend to wear thin on guys who are getting paid a lot of money. But, in the short term, it's definitely, anytime you have a coaching change, the best way to do a coaching change is get somebody who's got a complete opposite style. And, we didn't necessarily do that when we went from Jay to Ron, although Ron is much more of a disciplinarian than Jay was. He's still, I don't know.
He's more grandfatherly.
Yeah. The intensity isn't necessarily at the level that it needed to be to counteract this, the cool guy, approach of Jay Gruden. And I think that, going from Scott Turner and that kind of laid back approach to just a hard ass like Eric Bieniemy that's the right move to make. And it's just the results are there. Like you said, it's very visible.
Yeah. Mike, same thing. You guys talked about, the comments by Rivera about Bieniemy style. Some players maybe not happy with it. But to me, what kind of struck me today was maybe Bieniemy was right? Like maybe that type of style prepared you for the environment that you went in today. What do you think about that?
I agree. First of all, I feel like Rivera, like I said it last week, like he really, really shouldn't have said that.
No,
I feel like it was the right thing to say, just not publicly. That would have been a great conversation to have with Bieniemy behind the scenes. Like, yeah, man, you can't ride the team hard 24/7. You got to know when to turn it up and when to turn it down. Like, that was something to have in the back behind the scenes, because as an OC, you're right. Turner was more laid back, and Bieniemy is, well, not a hothead. He's just intense. He has intensity. And I appreciate that as an offensive coordinator. But I do, like I said, I wish he didn't say it, but I understood what Rivera meant last week when he was talking about comparing him and Del Rio to Bieniemy. But as far as the team, like for this season, we needed it. The offense needed it. Like since 2000, they haven't ranked higher than 29th in total offense. And I think in points per game is even lower.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yell at them. Scream at them. If it was the 50, slap them in the face. Nah, I'm joking.
Yeah, I agree with both of what you guys said. I mean, it is no coincidence that we were as well prepared and ready to meet the challenge of today's practice. Now, no one's saying that we won the practice or that we looked better, but we held our own, and that's something that we haven't done previously. And I think Eric said it. I think Eric, you said, hey, these two teams looked competitive, looked like they were on an even playing field earlier in the pod. And yeah, that's by design, right? These hard practices, these demanding of being exact on the details of route running, of your drops defensively, having to account for all of that, improvement as well too. I think it's just made the whole operation better, and it's been really good to see that. To those players who were complaining, shut up. Like, this is for your own good, right? Like when your parents used to tell you, no, this is for your own good. You're going to get something out of it, and you'll see. You might not see it then because you're too young to see it. But then when something happens later and you actually see, okay, I was prepared now because they were right. I did need to do the work. I did need to do the hard stuff because now it's easy now. So, that is it. Eric, anything, last words, last thoughts, anything?
Man, Monday's a long way off. I need a once a week game. This waiting 10 days between games is no fun. Yeah. So we need to get a better preseason schedule next year. Also, preseason football is atrocious. I literally, I mean, I'm glad football is back, but
Aiden
I always equate it to candy corn. Like at the beginning of fall, I always say this analogy. Ellie hates it, but like, when candy corn of fall first comes out, and it's been like a year since you had it, and you're like, "Ooh, candy corn!" And and you're like, "Oh God, I'm sick of it already." Like you kind of just forget how awful it is, but you're just happy to see like a new. That's kind of how I feel about this. We're like eggnog, right? You're like, "Ooh, eggnog." Oh, anyway, that's how I feel about preseason football. Like glad it's back, but I hate it.
Those are probably the two worst things I could think of: candy corn and eggnog. Like that's like a nightmare for me. Like I hate both of those things.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't particularly like either, but I'm always like excited when I see them. That's just a personal thing. I'm also admittedly a weirdo, so I get it.
Hey, your favorite quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, had a nice first game for the Raiders.
Dude, he's drawing Tom Brady comparisons even in the pre-draft. No, they were. One of the Raiders guys was saying that is like McDaniel thought he reminded him of Brady.
Just
with his, and we'll see if in the fact that he's like unathletic and completely immobile, then sure,
exactly.
I'm a huge fan of the dad bod. He makes us all gives us all hope, all of us pudgy fellows.
Goodness.
That's right. That's right. Mike, any last words, thoughts here before we get out of here?
I'm just happy that it seems like we have a team that can compete literally with any team in the NFL. Even going back to, when was that? 2020, I think, when we played the Chiefs, or maybe it was 2021. Like that game was kind of competitive compared to like seasons past. Matter of fact, when we played the Chiefs at FedEx 8 years prior, like that game was horrible.
The worst games ever.
Yeah, it was snowing, it was wet, and the Chiefs gave us the business. But 8 years later, and it's like, oh, we lost. They kind of gave it to us, but for a while we was hanging with them. So I'm really, really, really intrigued about this season with the talent that's coming, the coaching that's coming, and it's a hard schedule. So in my mind, if they make the playoffs, it's on. But it's August 15th, and we got a long way to go until then.
Yeah. No, you guys, I think are spot on. My last thoughts are, Joe Gibbs was at the practice today, along with Harris, with the owner watching. Thought that was interesting.
That was nice.
Yeah, but
I don't know why he didn't get in on the ownership group. That bugs me.
Well, Harris bought into Joe Gibbs Racing, so I think
they're buddies. But
so
slide a little equity over to him. That's all I'm saying. He's earned
it. Maybe that'll be year 2 of his ownership. Gibbs will buy in there. Yeah. But I think the overall, again, a lot of people were pointing to joint practices. This is where we find out. And I think we haven't had anything definitive. I think it's still too early to definitively say, anything. But I think it is something that you can say, hey, there's progress been made. Like, there's no doubt about that. Progress has been made. Does that progress lead to wins? I hope so. We'll find out. But progress has been made. This is not the same operation that it was a year ago. It is a better operation. We saw it on the field today. Like, there's no denying that. You saw it there. We were able to hang with them, and honestly, in some instances, maybe we outperformed them a little bit in terms of physicality. But it's a better operation. Signs of growth. I'm excited for that. And Mike, you're right. We can't have a step backwards tomorrow. They got to do something tomorrow. Stack another good day. Doesn't need to be amazing or anything, but stack another good day. And we will see everybody next week, hopefully after a preseason win and that Ravens win streak. Preseason? Can we do it? No?
I don't care. Let them have their stupid thing. I mean, I'd be great to beat them, but it's preseason. I don't care. I mean, the Ravens are the only ones who care about preseason.
The fact that it's on ESPN gives me a little bit more incentive to want them to lose. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, like, at all.
You're right. It doesn't matter. But if we could just stick it to the Ravens, I'll take it.
If it's like 28-0 at halftime, if we're up, and then they come back and win in the second half, I'm fine with that.
That would be Amazing.
I couldn't care less if they beat us with the second half comeback. But if we're up at halftime big, that would actually be pretty great.
Guys, great show. Everybody, remember to subscribe Commanders Declassified Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're out there. The YouTube channel. Subscribe there. We've got some other videos. I'll be making some videos to put on here. We've got final projection rosters coming up in a few weeks. The website, commanders247.com. Go check that out and go subscribe. We'll see y'all next week.